Being shortly after 6:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Begin with the prayer, if everybody will stand. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Counsel Elliott. Here. Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy. Here. Counsel Leary.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Milanazzo.
Here.
9 present.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for James J. Jimmy Meehan Sr., beloved husband of Donna Meehan, with whom she shared 52 years of marriage. Jimmy was a lifelong resident of the city of Lowell, receiving his education in the Lowell school system. Mr. Meehan began his career with the city of Lowell in the street department, later transferring to ashes and waste, and finally the cemetery department. He retired in 2005 after devoting 40 years of dedicated service to the city of Lowell. He was a fixture in the city, a hard-working family man, remembered for his quick wit, funny one-liners, and his smiling Irish eyes. In addition to his wife, Donna, he is survived by his daughter, Kimberly, his 4 sons, James Jr., Gary, Michael, and Joseph, 7 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. He was a remarkable gentleman. We offer our sympathy to his family, relatives, and many friends. He will be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business is the minutes of the Economic Development Subcommittee of January 10th and the City Council meeting of January 10th for acceptance. We have a motion to accept by Councilor Rourke, second by Councilor Samaras. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Moving on, under the auditor's business, we have a communication for the December year-to-date budget report. Do we have a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Leary?
Just a quick question.
Seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. Councilor Leary.
Just through you to the city auditor, just a question. I noticed that some of the school department line items are negative. I know the overall budgets per department, if you will, per school are still in the positive, and it's about a 55% of their budget still is unspent. But just to kind of get an idea, because there are a lot of negatives, and it's kind of just an issue with me in terms of house cleaning. Is that something that they're anticipating grants to come in, or they're going to be moving monies into those different line items?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I've been working with the school department as well. I guess just on a high level, the council itself allocates a lump sum for the schools, and then the schools budgeted as needed on a line item basis. There's a couple line items that they have very close to duplicate accounts almost set up, where one might be funded under the budget and the other one might be hitting the expenditure, so they got to kind of clean that up or just keep an eye on that. But as a whole, there's a couple accounts, as you mentioned, that they are looking to work to do some expenditure transfers through grants or existing accounts that they can do so, and they're just working on the process as far as I know. But I am in constant communication with them and working on trying to get some more details on the specifics to it.
No, good. It looks like the aggregate numbers were fine. I'm just curious if there was an issue in your end, but it sounds like there isn't, and you're in constant communication, so that's good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next, moving on to communications from the city manager. We have motion responses A through G. We'll begin with A, which is student parking on Livingston Avenue. Counsel Leary, then Counsel Mercia. Counsel Leary.
Just quickly, I don't know if is Nick Navin here? I don't know if it's a quick question. Hi, Nick. Just through you to Nick, I guess, first, thanks for the report. I guess the first question is, when are we going to reach out to the folks and sit down with them? Have we begun that process? What time frame do you expect that process to begin if it hasn't begun?
We've already begun the process reaching out, and there's a lot of people that would come together. So I anticipate that we will be able to sit down and meet within the next few weeks.
Okay, and I think that's a good start to it. I think it's really up to, communication. The challenges are that the students are back. The challenges are that I run into a few folks all the time saying this is going to happen on this Tuesday, and rest assured it happens. I think it's most of the folks there are pretty reasonable. Just a question of actually reaching out to them and making sure that they're working together and coordinating with the UMass Lowell's Police Department as well. But in addition to that, there's other areas that are similar to it throughout the city. There's different areas that we need to coordinate. And I think really opening up this communication, using the plan that's developed, as long as that plan is actually implemented, it's an issue that will simply resolve itself. I mean, it'll be an ongoing issue as different students move in and out and what have you, but it's something that we need to make sure we're working with. The parking is a challenge, especially if you have a residential parking location in front of your house and someone's taking it. That car really, unfortunately, needs to be towed, no matter who is, not just a student, but any individual that's parking in those areas. But as far as the Livingston Avenue, sitting down with them, developing a plan that actually meets the neighborhood's needs, and I'm sure meets the students' needs, and other folks that are in the area will be of benefit. But the key is, really making sure that it's implemented and it actually happens, and listening to their feedback. And a few weeks is nice, but they've been kind of waiting since like November. So if we can, push that process up, that would be greatly appreciated. I think the neighbors would appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Counsel Mercia, then Counsel Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate and say the same thing that Councilor Leahy, Larry, we got to stop this Larry Leahy. But anyway, that is very important, and I just wanted to make sure that the neighbors that were most vocal are the ones that realize this meeting's going to take place, so that we can notify them, because they have been inundated with a lot of parking there. We have UMass Lowell students that were intruding on their space, monopolizing their area, and they were almost like holding the neighbors hostage. So I feel like I'm glad something is going to be done this meeting. I just want them to be aware of this meeting and notify them so they can be there to voice their opinion. Thank you.
Counsel Leahy, then Counsel Wood.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. When they built the residence, you have to have parking requirements with that. So having the classrooms over there, this is kind of new to me. Wouldn't they have to have the same requirements so they don't spill out into the neighborhoods? And, what happened with that? Or it seems like this should have, if they didn't have the parking, they shouldn't have had the classes over there.
Well, they do have the parking, but they charge for it.
Okay, so these are kids
they
trying
save
not to.
some money by going over and parking on Livingston Ave. It's been a difficult issue in all fairness, is that, the neighbors themselves don't agree on what should be done on the street. We originally proposed no parking, but then that was summarily rejected because they wanted to park. So there is parking on the street, so they have the right to park there. It's just that I think Nick's idea to sit down with the university and work with them and the neighbors to resolve it without having to go to a no parking at all on the street. So it is going to work out. It's a difficult issue because there's 6 different thoughts about what needs to be done to cure the problem. But we'll get to a resolution of it.
So one quick question. If you're taking a class over there, they make you pay for the parking?
Yes.
All right, so why don't they just stop they should
what
just
we're
have
gonna
free
say.
parking?
It's one of the things we're going to discuss at the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we're paying enough to send our kids there. Seems a little ridiculous to charge in their own parking lots like that, so, thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Counsel Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's my question comes from, Mr. Manager. Is the university, have they been aware of this problem since this? 'Cause I remember a year or so ago when they came before us 2 or 3 times, and they had promised that there would be terrific neighbors, to that neighborhood. And it seems like that's not, really happening. Whether it's just a couple of rogue students that are not listening or not. I mean, do they put out word to their student population of not to park in that area, or do you know of anything that they're trying to do to try to help this problem out?
Yeah, that's one of the things we're going to talk, because if you remember that the UMass Lowell used to lease that gravel parking lot down by the riverfront?
Yeah.
And then they let the lease expire, but at the same time, they told us that if there were any UMass Lowell students parking there, we could ticket them. So that's something we'll be discussing, a process like that on Livingston Ave. Because we can tell if the car is from UMass Lowell. They usually have a sticker on it or something. So we'll be looking at that option to implement on Livingston Ave also.
I mean, as Councilor Leary said, you hate to start towing student vehicles, but I mean, in order to get the misses across, sooner or later you're gonna have to. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? If you're hearing none, we'll move on to item B, which is lighting at the Leo Royal parking garage and access to parking during city festivals. Any discussion? Counselor Samaras.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the city manager and Nick Naven for this report. It's a complete report. But, Mr. Manager, could I ask Mr. Naven to come up? And Nick, this is a result of the meeting of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. And one of the concerns was the lighting of the Pawtucket Canal. And then there was a feeling of some of the during some of the festivals, they did not have access to some of the garages. And you've shown this to be an aberration or an anomaly for this district. So could you just go over those 2 points?
Sure. Speaking to your last point about the accessibility of the garages during the festivals, you know, the inaccessibility of the Roy in particular was just an example of, you know, an execution error that occurred at the most recent City of Lights parade, configuring the barriers. Recently, the city went with a hard barrier in response to some events that have occurred, you know, that required increased safety along the perimeter of events. So, but we've got that ironed out now, and I don't think that that would reoccur. And then with the lighting, we've reached out to a contractor to fix that. There were some fixtures that are attached to the garage that were not working properly, so we've addressed that. And the gates as well. The DPW has fixed that for us, so you know, we can begin locking those gates in that area and lighting it at night.
Now, the lock of the gates, especially in the lights, I think that's important to the neighborhood, because that's something that, in their discussions, they would say, well, they did lock, or they do lock. So there's a debate between all the people who live in that area as to what does work, and to make this happen. I appreciate that. One more question. One of the questions that were raised regarding access to the garage, there are some people with disabilities, and because, we'll say, the Leroy garage was blocked at some point, when large groups come in, like the Folk Festival, are there volunteers that use those golf carts that could be available, or like a number to call if people did not have access?
That has not occurred as far as like a ferry or transit within the footprint of the festival. Like I said, ordinarily it's never happened that, you know, you couldn't get to or from any one of our garages. So I've never been aware of you know, a desire for that service in my time on the ground, like, you know. At the
No, I
festivals.
understand it, but there was discussion that some people were affected by that, and there are some people, it impacts them seriously because they just don't have the mobility. And
Yes, of course.
that's the issue. So I was just wondering if in a major festival, if you would have like an emergency number for anyone, in the sense that might have a disability that would need some help.
Sure, we could certainly look into that and seeing what's already in place, if anything could, you know, lend itself to that need.
No, thank you, but this was a good job done on this.
Thanks.
Good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the motion response, Nick Naven. It was very informative. But one thing that bears mentioning to Councilor Samaras' motion is that the parking revenue that is generated from these large festivals, such as the Folk Festival, you know, a decent portion of it is kicked back to the festival. For instance, Mr. Mayor, through you to Nick Naven, Nick, how much did the city, just through parking revenue, throw to the Festival Foundation this year, which is the fiscal agent for the Lowell Folk Festival? Do you recall offhand?
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000.
$30,000. It's a tidy sum of money, and this large festival has cost almost $1 million to run. So It's shared revenue, if you will. So the city is certainly, we have to take care of the staffing and what we need to do on that weekend, but we share the revenue with the folk festival itself. So, Mr. Mayor, I thought that does bear mentioning. It does pertain to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the Cullen family dedication. Counselor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Cullen family very much appreciates all the efforts being done by the city, Mr. Manager. The only request I did have is, as soon as the date is picked for the dedication, they have family that's kind of spread out now. If you could just let them know as soon as possible, just for travel, stuff like that. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the implementation status of the Municipal Modernization Act. Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me extend my thanks to the administration, to Kevin Murphy and to Connor Baldwin for putting together really a very concise piece of work, taking 125 pages and reducing it to what we have before us this evening. And there are ordinances that might come out of this new Modernization Act of 2016, but I think that it's good for the council to use this as really a way to just show how the partnership between the state and local government is becoming even less more seamless, if you will, more seamless. So again, I appreciate all of this information. Look forward to some of the ordinances that will come out of this legislation. Look forward to the reports that we will submit based on double polls, Councilor Leahy, as it results to this legislation. So again, I appreciate the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to chime in on Council Milonazo's motion and his comments as well. Particularly, there are a lot of options now that are available to municipalities as a result of this. I just wanted to touch on the double poll as well. Report indicates that as of December 31st, there has to be a list submitted. Do municipalities or the city anticipate getting that list of polls that are to be removed, that inventory that's required by the law? I mean, I know it's the second week of January and this deadline just hit. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Manager?
The utilities have until that time to submit the list to the state, and then the state will compile it and then send it to us. So we'll monitor this, and as soon as we get the list, we'll make sure it's available for the council, so you'll know about it.
So under the statute, that was supposed to be to have been submitted by this past December. So we'll be getting that, and then they will be responsible within that year's time to remove anything that has been on that list. That's good. That is good news. Secondly, on speed limits, how does that apply? Is it up to the municipalities to determine which roadways that, other than state highways, we can determine whether we want to keep the speed limit 30 or 25 or less?
Actually, Nick Bossinetto has done a pretty nice map of the streets in the city that we can change the speed limit on. A lot depends on whether it's a state highway or whether there's a traffic study that's established a speedway. But why don't we have Nick? We'll send that.
Sure.
Okay. We'll resend that report to the council, so you'll all have it, so that you'll see the process for changing the speed limits on the streets in the city.
Do you anticipate coming with recommendations, based upon accidents or motions or things of that nature? You do? Okay. Thank you. As Councilor Milonazo mentioned, I'm sure we will see many of these evolve into ordinances as deemed necessary. But I think this is a good thing for communities. And I think at some other point there is discussion about e-polling data, and is that a money saver? It's not. The financial officer is saying that it's not. Why is that? I mean, I thought the intent was to get the voter list instead of getting all the paper lists, that was going to eliminate that provision, but no.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there would be an initial cost to getting the equipment, so there'd be initial capital of somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000. We were awarded a grant for some temporary equipment to do the early voting just recently, but to do it, to build up our capacity long term, there would be a one-time cost and then maintenance costs for the machines. It would improve maybe the time for polling, but
it wouldn't be a money saver per se.
Okay, I can see why you were shaking your head. It's not going to be a savings with that capital outlay. So thank you very much. Appreciate it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Mercia, then Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the double pole issue, didn't we at one time have National Grid come up here like quarterly to give a report as to how many poles were replaced and fixed? And we haven't seen them for a long time. And did we now release them of any obligation to come up here? And because I don't see them anymore, and I think they really should still continue that.
Mr. Manager.
We'll request that they give a report in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras.
Thank you. Thank you. When Councilor Elliott was talking about the speed limits in the city, and as you stated, Mr. Manager, that the state has given you permission to make changes unless it's a state road. However, there was a newspaper article talking about Boston designing a 25-mile-an-hour limit in the entire city. And is this something that at least you could provide us with some information as to what they're doing and how they're doing it? Because I think this is a topic that's been discussed so many times on the floor of the city council, but regarding the safety on various streets. So I'd just like to get that information if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on item D? If not, we'll move on to item E, establishing a citywide youth council. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to thank the manager for his very prompt response. I only made the motion last Tuesday. And it was very informative. And it seems that there's already something very similar to I'm looking to accomplish something already that is in motion. It is dubbed Youth Reaching Out program that involves many of the youth organizations throughout the city. So here tonight we have Caitlin Hickey, our youth services coordinator. I'd like to ask to come up to the podium, Mr. Mayor, say a few words. What do you know? Well, here she is. She's at the podium. Maybe give us a few words what this is about, and I think we'll find this satisfactory. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Caitlin Hickey. So we have Youth Reaching Out, which meets weekly on Wednesdays over at the YWCA on Rock Street. And anyone and everyone are more than welcome to join. We're actually looking for more teens to start coming to the meetings. They used to be called the Lowell Youth Council, and then before that it was known as the Mayor's Joint Youth Commission. Right now, the biggest thing that we're working on for this year is we meet monthly on the 6th floor conference room at Lowell Community Health Center. And it's our community dialogue meetings, which we have several Lowell police officers that come to these meetings, and as well as all of the teens and members from YWCA, Lowell Community Health Center Teen Block, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., places like that. And we're just working on trying to establish healthy and positive relationships between the teens and the police officers in the community, because as we all know, that's very important right now. You know, it's a nationwide issue. So that's the biggest goal for this year that we've been working on. So, like I said, we meet monthly. It's always on Wednesdays, 3:30 over at LCHC. So as soon as I have the next date, I can send that out to you if anyone's, wanting to attend.
Thank you. Councilor Belanger.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Caitlin. That was very good, as is the motion response. So I think that satisfies this council's needs and what we're looking to accomplish with the motion. That was passed unanimously. So, Caitlin, to you, if you can please keep the council notified of those monthly meetings. Some of us may like to attend. I know I'd like to be there. So I think this is very important that we continue to engage our youth. And it's good to hear something's already in motion. We just need to enhance their efforts and help them out, which I intend on doing, Mr. Mayor, being the chairman of the Youth Services Subcommittee. So thank you very much, and thank you, Caitlin, for your hard work. So,
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Elliott, I think. Councilor.
Thank you. Caitlin, are there any particular issues that you're focusing on at this time at your meetings?
The biggest one is just the building the relationships with the police department, but we also, on the weekly basis, have been focusing on like violence prevention. Right now at our meetings, we've been establishing with the teens, what violence means to them, and creating, a definition of violence, because it can be in many different forms, as we all know. So that's what we've been focusing on right now. And then also, we've been working on trying to come up with different projects that we can do throughout the city. So just trying to think about any issues that they see, whether it's in school, or I know bullying's been coming up a lot. So just trying to come up with some kind of project that we can do moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. I was just gonna ask Mr. Mayor, maybe she could contact your office, and then that information for the monthly meetings could be dispersed to us.
So when you leave, if you just stop in, Celine will be there for another hour. If you just stop in and let her know, then
Okay,
she'd
great.
be happy to do that. That'll make things be easier.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion
Thank
on
you.
this item? If not, we'll move on to the, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
The Lowell House project update, any discussion? Council Belanger and Council Mercy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the manager for his response to this project that we've all anxiously been waiting, seeing a status, see where we are at with this project. And Mr. Manager, it's quite clear that this council and you and your administration are 100% behind the Lowell House, its mission, and what it's to accomplish. There's no doubt about it. Lowell's being hit hard with this crisis, and they are a much, much needed service in our city. There's no doubt about it. And I stand with you on that stand. But what they are trying to accomplish there is a residential treatment, sober living on the Merrimack Street corridor, where the current facility is now offering just services. But it seems like your findings, Mr. Manager, is that while you're very supportive of the Lowell House and the mission, the location is perhaps a little questionable, and that you are working with the Lowell House in alternative locations. So could you please elaborate on that statement and what is surmised to this point, and see what you have come up with?
Well, I've met with Mr. Gar and representatives of the Lowell House at least twice. And I've made it very clear to Mr. Gar and the representatives of the Lowell House is that I support their mission 100%. I mean, I have this scourge in my own family, and I certainly support it. But one thing we've learned through the Working Cities grant that we're doing is that one of the main reasons that the Acre remains one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city of Lowell is two things: too much subsidized housing and too many social service programs in the area. And this proposal, if we allowed it at its current location, would just exacerbate that situation. But we've been working with the Lowell House. First of all, I think it's important to note that Lowell House is counseling-only services. They don't have a clinical component to their operation on Merrimack Street. So we've been working with them because the Lowell Community Health Center has a clinical substance abuse program on their premises, and they have space available at the Lowell Community Health Center. So we've been working with the Lowell Community Health Center and the Lowell House to try and see if we can locate their treatment program to the Community Health Center, where you'd have not only counseling, but you'd have a clinical approach to the issue. We've also been working with the Lowell House on finding another location for the housing component of the Lowell House. We've identified several locations. We're working with them to see if they can transfer the living component to another area. So I'm also meeting with Young Joe Choi tomorrow from the CBA, and I'm sure that's going to be part of the discussion. So we're 100% committed to supporting the Lowell House, but this administration just feels that expanding it at that current location isn't in the best interest of the city, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that they expand their program in a way that it benefits everybody in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. That's a great explanation. And I agree with you. It has challenged at that location. I've expressed that publicly. We need their services in our city. There is no two ways about it. And we're not saying, no, we don't have that not in our backyard mentality. We're just questioning that location, that it may not be the best thing for that area, what we're trying to accomplish with that Working Cities. And something that I'd like to bring up too is that, prior to getting elected on the zoning board of appeals, we worked very hard on the methadone clinic and relocating that facility, and it was a hot-button issue. And I'll tell you why. From my dealings with these, what I'll call a freestanding clinics, they are unfortunately still stigmatized. Should not be, but they are. I don't agree with it at all. Okay? And when this crisis, this is a disease. When you're addicted to substance abuse, it is a disease like anything else. You should be in a medical facility. So if this were able to be relocated to the Lowell Community Health Center, Mr. Manager, I think is an outstanding resolution. I think that would be very, very appropriate, where these patients can't be, stigmatized by hanging out in front of Lowell House, which I hear from people. It's not fair. It's not a fair assessment of these individuals. Okay, but if they're able to walk into a medical facility like other patients that suffer from back or a cancer or any other disease, are able to walk in without being stigmatized, I think would be outstanding accomplishment. So please continue to work hard with the Lowell House, Mr. Manager. I am behind you 100%. Their mission, we've got to keep them here in the city of Lowell. I agree with that. I'm not so sure that's the best location. But in a medical facility, I think is a great resolution where these patients could go in without being stigmatized. I think that's very, very important, Mr. Manager. So great work. I agree with your motion response, and please keep the council attuned to how this project develops, because we're very concerned about it and where it may end up in our city. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Mercia, then Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely think the world of Councilor Belanger, and of course you, Mr. Manager, but I don't agree with this at all. Did you speak to Bill Garr, the executive director? Is he amenable to what you're saying, or is he in total shock to think that they have a plan in place that is not going to be conducive to the neighborhood? That is like saying, there's buildings and businesses going up around Upper Middlesex Street with the courthouse there, but we get the transitional living center. We know we need it, but we want it out of there. This is, to me, the same situation saying, because it's got so many low-income housing and subsidize this, and it's good for the city, but not there. I don't buy that. And I don't know how Bill Garr thinks about it. If he's amenable to it, I'm very surprised, because
I didn't say he was. I didn't say he was happy with it, but he did indicate that he would work with us. It's a difficult situation. But like I told you, we're 100% committed to supporting their mission and finding a location that is what we feel is more suitable for the residents as a whole.
And what if we can't find a suitable location?
We will.
You will?
Yes, we will. We've been successful, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to find a suitable. We've already found the Lowell Community Health Center. They do have a financial issue with it, but we're working to bridge the gap with city funds to help locate them to the Lowell Community Health Center. And we've already located at least several housing opportunities for them. And we're working with them, and I'm confident that we will be successful.
Because I don't want this to be the wrench thrown into the spoke that they fold up their hands and say, okay, fine, we're not going to do nothing, we'll stay as is. Because I think expanding that facility, we need that. We need that. I think it's a good plan that they have in place. But anyway, that's just my opinion. And I have a right to my opinion, and I don't agree with any of it. I'm sorry, and I think the world of you, Corey, but I'm sorry.
Thank you, Council Milonazo.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councilor Mercia's comments, I too support the efforts to Lowell House and the CBA, and I've, supported the city manager for the years that he's been city manager, but I could not disagree with his comments more about that. Lowell House exasperates the problem in that neighborhood. I could not disagree more. I think that they bring a lot of activity to the neighborhood. I think that the plan that they have, they've actually worked with an architect that was involved with the new branch of John Doe Credit Union, which is going to be right next door. And I think that the investment that they plan to make there will enhance that neighborhood. I understand your willingness to work with them, and I appreciate that. And maybe if you do find another location, that will work. But I think that they deserve a chance. I mean, we all, and I don't want to use the term fell in line, but we all got behind the Megan House. And initially, the Megan House wasn't the best, in my opinion, the best location, but the Megan House has now proven to be an asset in this community. As a body, we all support the efforts to make sure that that's successful. Again, the talk early on was that it shouldn't be located there, and I actually was involved in that building years ago, so I understood the concern of the neighbors. But the Megan House has turned out to be a terrific neighbor in that neighborhood, providing great services. So I think that the Lowell House and the CBA really should be given a chance to move forward with their plans here. I'm of the opinion that they don't feel that the city is serious in helping them. I think that they feel they're getting lip service, which is really too bad, because that's never been something that this administration has ever done. The fact that you're talking about moving it to the Lowell Community Health Center, might, again, on the surface have its merits, but I think at the end of the day, we really, as Councilor Mercy said, really need to give both entities a chance to really develop that at their current site. That's my opinion, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you, Mr. Manager. I don't think that's an appropriate location. The Merrimack Street corridor and, through the Working Cities grants, we did learn that it needs help. And one of the reasons why, drive down Merrimack Street, and then drive down Salem Street, and then drive down some of the other avenues in the acre. And I just don't believe that this is a suitable place to put an additional 44 units of assisted housing, if you will, those that are in recovery. And I met with Mr. Carr. I met with him on 2 occasions. And yes, I mean, the Lowell House, they've been there for decades. And I actually had to sit in the waiting room for quite some time waiting for Mr. Carr. And you see the clients going in. They're going in and they're looking for help, which we have provided. The city has provided. But that is a business corridor. We're trying to develop businesses and link the university with their efforts, and it is slowly making progress. I understand the intent is to create, that's a 4-story building, and of residential housing. There's already 8 units right behind the Lowell House that houses individuals that are in recovery, and they're moving on to the next stage. That being said, I don't support it in its current location, expanding down there. If we can find other locations, then that makes sense. I told Mr. Gar that. I told Young Ju Choi that, the director of CBA as well. But you can't have business and then have, a treatment center, in my opinion. Maybe you can, and it has worked with Megan House in a residential neighborhood, and folks are skeptical. But I think it needs to be in more of a controlled environment. You're downtown, there's a liquor store, right next door. There's affordable housing. I don't know. That's just my opinion and my feeling. But the more information we get from you, Mr. Manager, on options, then the better off we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Samaras.
Thank you. I want to thank the city manager for the report. There comes times when issues like this are not easy to decide. But the thing is, I do know that the Federal Reserve grant that they did receive for that area speaks to the area of the highest level of poverty, the least amount of opportunity for people who live within that area. So there are several concerns. One, the drug issue is a serious issue, and it's something that we have to do to make sure that many of our children, parents, anybody, neighbors, don't fall by the wayside because of drug addiction. And Lowell House and the program, they do a great job. But I think the city manager, in following our dictates of making the city work, has to do several things. One, he has to look at locations of different enterprises, and this enterprise, very successful. If there's a possibility, could move it out of the commercial sector into an area that'd be far more advantageous. It works to everybody's advantage. What I'm looking for in this area, because we've made motions about this area, the corridor between the university and the city of Lowell, this is one of our last commercial spokes in the city that we have. And I'm looking for programs that will give a hand up, not a handout to many of the people who live in that acre area. And when I say a hand up, it means jobs, it means education, and those are the areas that we really have to work for in that area. So I don't want to see us get bogged down as to a fight over whether the house should be there or not there. But the thing is, I think the city manager should have the option to look at alternative sites that could be even more meaningful to them, and also look to the commercial development of that area. It's very important because we're talking about what that $300,000 grant or $400,000 grant stated. Education is very necessary in that area. Jobs are very necessary in that area. Housing, just straight housing, to meet the needs of the economically deprived people in that area is necessary. The city manager has on his plate a handful because we want to make this work. We have to make this work. So I think the city manager has to have the options of trying to do what is best for the city. And what is best for the city and its people, it has to be best for everyone. So the poorest person, and one thing about the poorest person, in most cases, they need an education, they need a job, they need support. Those people who are addicted to drugs and other things, they need the necessary support. Lowell has shown itself to be a city, not saying not in our backyard, but a city that's willing to handle all of these situations. But again, I go back to, we can agree with the, it's easy to agree with the city manager on an easy run-through. But sometimes some of the decisions become quite difficult, and we ask the city manager to do things that quite often very difficult to carry out and please all of us. So it's not a matter about pleasing all of us. I think it's the matter of doing the right thing. And the right thing is to, I think, we have to follow the Federal Reserve Plan, which articulates very clearly that we have to go into that area and work that area out to give the people in that area a hand up. At the same time, Mr. Garr and his program, they've done a fine job, but I think the idea of possibly finding another location is not harmful to the program. It just fits the entire process. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further, Councilor Leary?
Just quickly, I guess to follow up through what you said earlier, Mr. Manager, what are the options, and what time frames do you think the options that you're looking at could actually come to fruition? Because I guess the key point, I think Councilman also said it, that they're feeling like we're giving them just lip service, which I guess that needs to really be addressed, because we shouldn't be doing that if we are, which I don't think we are. But I think really, what are these options? Can they fit? I think it was 44 units. Do we have options that meet what their overall objective and goals are? Which really I think would be our shared goals in treating folks and helping folks, as Councilor Samara said, give them a hand up, getting them an ability to be successful. I mean, that's really, what are those options? What time frames do you think?
First, I've never given anybody lip service in my entire career, and I don't intend to give people lip service, and I haven't given lip service to Mr. Garr or any of his representatives. I've told them the honest truth, so I haven't led them on. There are options. There's 20,000 square feet of space available at the Lowell Community Health Center right now that's more than adequate for their needs. The problem is their funding and whether they can afford, and we're working with them right now. looking at funding we have in CDGB funds or other funding that we have in the city to see if we can bridge that gap that there is in the cost to locate at the Lowell Community Health Center. Without risking our negotiation process, we've identified at least 2 parcels that could be utilized for housing. I wish I could give you a timeline. I mean, it'll be much quicker to locate them at the Lowell Community Health Center, but it's going to be more of a challenge, I think, to do the housing component. But it's, like I said, we've already identified 2 spots that would be appropriate. It's just a matter of acquiring those spots and making sure that they have the funding to do it. So we've worked very hard. Mr. Coughlin has been working very hard on this issue, and will continue to work hard to make sure that it's a benefit to all the residents of Lowell.
I think it's important that we're making sure that we're working on it, so I take it on faith that you're doing that. It's important that we get feedback in terms of where it's going. I think, developing that business corridor is important to the city. At the end of the day, we're trying to really enhance the commercial tax base. That's really what drives everything at the end of the day in terms of what we're able to do, what we're able to fund. There's motions coming up regarding different things on the fire department, what have you. At the end of the day, it comes down to where's that revenue coming for to support that. So I am in support of continuing making that an improvement in terms of business. But I think it's equally imperative that we try to match what their goals and objectives are, because ultimately those are what the community's goals and objectives are. And as long as we're really, truly meeting that, I don't think it really matters if it goes there in that particular location or a different location that might be suitable. But it's imperative, again, not to be, talking in a circle, that we're actually doing that. And if we're not able to do it, to come forward and say, here's what really, we've done everything we can, we don't have any options. And quicker, rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Roque.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate the manager's dealing with Mr. Gar. And also, I know how the manager feels about the drugs and alcohol problem. I know how strong he fights for that. I think what Councilor Mercy and I come from the angle that we see people every day that come to us and they end up going to the shelter because they have nowhere to go. When you have a situation like the Lowell House, what they're proposing, it's actually a living space where you have to be clean, you have to be sober. It's going to be a brand new building. It's going to be a taxable property, from what I've been told by Mr. Gar. And if we're saying it's the type of person that's going to be in that brand new taxable property that we have a problem with, I think that's dangerous. I would love to have a place where people come see me at work, or people go see Councilor Mercier at work, and we can refer them somewhere that you need to be sober. You need to be taking programs, whether that's GED training, job training. I hope it all works out between the manager and Mr. Gar. I want it to work out. I'm sure we all want that to work out. But we talk about all the time about space that's needed to help these people that are down, that have a sickness, and I would hate to see that lost. Again, with something that's going to be brand new, taxable, something that's going to be there to help people that need it most. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to item G, which is informational. It's a letter to the Deputy Director of HUD Regional Office regarding the Westminster Village. Any discussion on item G? Hearing none. Councilor Elliott.
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, this is a good communication. I think it was important to let the federal government let them know and be aware, considering there are 400 units of federally subsidized housing. And I think the attachment with the police reports was again, a telling story. Do you anticipate getting a response back, Mr. Manager, or, it was just letting them know what's going on because, at some point in time, they'll be conducting an audit, I presume, on these, or I don't know if you're familiar, if we can find out what the next step is. Wait a minute, maybe we can ask one of our esteemed councilors.
I think Councilor Milanazzo would have a better idea. It was his good suggestion to send it, and we followed up on that suggestion.
And I do think, Bob Zwicker will send you a response. He may even pick up the phone and call you to get more information. So I would expect a response.
So is there is the process an audit on a regular basis that they audit housing authorities and large complexes?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
great. That's good news. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we move on to the next section of the agenda, and while we're still under communications from the city manager, I don't know if I should suspend the rules, but I wanted to bring something up on the agenda for discussion and just relay a message from the residents of Middlesex Village, if that is okay.
Well, we're talking about Westminster Village, so this
Oh,
would be the
Thought you were
time.
done with that.
We're still doing it.
Okay, but I mean after then.
Oh, I thought you wanted to convey a message to Westminster Village, no?
Oh, no, not West.
It's
no,
something
I thought you
different?
were off of that subject.
Oh, Middlesex Village.
Middlesex Village. That
Okay.
okay?
All right, so Council Mercia is requesting that we suspend the rules in order to take up an item having to do with Middlesex Village. If there's no dissent, then we'll do that by general consent. Hearing none, Council Mercia.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, the residents of Middlesex Village in the area of Princeton Boulevard and Baldwin Street, they wanted me to publicly thank you, Mr. Manager, and Department Services Eric Slagle, Sean Machado, and Law Department Attorney Elliot Veloso for their professional handling of Coelho property. They all took time out of their very busy schedule to come down personally and view the atrocities plaguing the neighborhood, and a lot was accomplished, and they asked me to relay this message to you and offer us their sincere thanks for everything that you and the department did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor. If there's no further discussion, then the chair would entertain a motion to accept all the communications from the city manager and place them on file by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Samaras. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next item is a communication from the city manager reappointing Craig Kelly and John Donovan to the Board of Health. Do we have a motion to approve by Councilor Leary, seconded by Councilor Elliott? Discussion, roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger. Yes. Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Next, we have a communication from the city manager requesting out-of-state travel for 2 members of the Lowell Police Department. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Discussion, roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yeah.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have an order for a 60-day trial pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts concerning Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading and go to the second reading pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell, Massachusetts concerning Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. We have a motion to approve. Motion approved by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Belanger. Discussion. Roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger. Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Next, we have an ordinance to amend Chapter 150 entitled Fees. The proper motion will be referred to a public hearing on January 31st, 2017 at 7 p.m. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading, and I'll just read an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell, Massachusetts as amended by amending Chapter 150-1, Schedule of Fees and Penalties. Do we have a motion to send it to public hearing by Council Leary, seconded by Council Elliott? Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted.
Mayor, just a quick question, maybe it's just my own edification of council procedure. Can we just get what the old one was with the new? I know the initial report showed the changes, but this one in our packet doesn't show the difference. As long as it's online, so when folks come down, they have what it was before and what they're talking about in terms of what we're recommending the changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Next, on the subcommittee reports, we have a report from the Transportation Subcommittee of January 17, 2017. Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening at 5:30, we held a Transportation Subcommittee here at the council chambers. President was myself, along with my members of the subcommittee, Council Leahy, Council Belanger. Mayor Kennedy, Council Mercia, Council Leary, Council Elliott, Council Monazzo, and Council Samara. So, the entire council was present, Mr. Mayor, and it goes to show how important this subject was. Also in attendance was City Manager, Traffic Engineer Nick Bostonetto, and the VHB Counseling department that actually helped with the presentation and the background and the research. The reason for tonight's meeting was the Lord Overpass redesign. The background of this, as people well know, is the Hamilton Canal District Traffic Improvement Project. It's the Jackson Street extension, the access to the Judicial Center, the partnership with Mass DOT, and most importantly, the $15 million that the city applied along with the state delegation years ago and received. The main thing tonight is Nick Bostonetto, our traffic engineer, stated was the design elements that are required by the DOT for this project. There were 7 elements that have to be followed and that best serve the city in the redesign. They include safety, economic development, capacity, connectivity, the modular choices, community aesthetics, and transportation equity, which basically means access for everyone, regardless of ability and so forth. There were multiple concepts that were looked at and presented. It was overwhelmingly by the manager's office and by Mr. Bostonetto, as well as the VHB counseling service, that concept number 4 was the city's best option. This came from multiple public input hearings. Actually, we're going to have one more as well, that just to roll out this plan, if approved by the council this evening. With the new courthouse and Hamilton Canal upcoming, Lowell has to find a way to access these places the best way we can, and not just for residents, but for those coming into the city, which we're going to have hopefully a lot of that in the very near future. Another byproduct of picking this concept, Mr. Mayor, was we would have enough money left over to put that towards the Lowell connector ramps. So that's also the widening, I should say, and that's an added benefit that should not go unforeseen or unforgotten. With regards to concept 4, Mr. Mayor, Nick Bostonello is here. I would ask him to come up and just give an overview of all the advantages that the council go with. And concept 4, Mr. Mayor, was a motion was made by Councilor Belanger to accept concept 4 and to bring it to the full council tonight for a vote. So with some background info on that, Nick Bostonello.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Chairman O'Rourke, thank you again. Yes, and so what we presented was the last iteration in our design process, this concept number 4, which is the culmination of adding all the design elements into the project and trying to come up with the best design that serves the city now and in 50 years from now when this project, when this infrastructure modernization, it's going to last us a long, long time. So we want to make sure we get it right. As Chairman Rourke clearly indicated, access to the Hamilton Canal and the Judicial Center were the main goal of this project. Safety is also paramount. And we also looked at, the gateway into the city, how it's going to look, providing a good first impression for everybody coming off the Lowell Connector and visiting our great city. So we definitely, concept 4 is I think the best option we have, and we would like to proceed forward with the design. That way we can get it out to bid April 2018, and so it's constructed. It's substantially complete by the time the Judicial Center opens up and the Hamilton Canal District is being developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And one of the things about concept 4, Mr. Mayor, that was stated at the subcommittee was actually there would be less lights involved instead of more, which I think was a result of the public input sessions that occurred. Coming up the connector, you have a simple left or a right-hand turn to get to where you need to go off of the Thorndike Street, Dutton Street area. And once again, a motion was made by Councilor Belanger to bring it to us tonight. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to accept concept 4 and going forward.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept concept 4, seconded by Councilor Leahy. Discussion on the motion? Council Leary.
Just quick, thank you. First of all, that was a great subcommittee meeting, very informative. Just a quick question, if I could ask through you to Nick or to the manager. Just looking at different ways, I mean, ultimately, the entire city at one point in time goes through this. This is the major entrance into the city. So looking at Chelmsford Street and looking at Middlesex Street, when you're coming from the lower Highland, well, really the Highlands, do you anticipate any bottlenecks in that area going through those lights? Or do you feel that that's going to be an improvement, leaving that or coming out of the town into the downtown or into Hamilton Canal?
Yes, through the mayor and city manager. Yes, coming from the Highlands and the lower Highlands, with the filled-in option, you're going to have a much greater accessibility. You're going to be able to access downtown through just one traffic signal instead of having to go all the way around the rotary and down the ramps. This really will connect the two sides of the city a lot better. Right now, you can't go straight on Middlesex or Appleton, Chelmsford in one direction. This will really allow you to have much more connectivity. It's also going to provide the city with a lot more accessibility to Thorndike Street. You'll be able to come down Jackson Street. You'll be able to come down Middlesex and Appleton and even Highland Street. You'll be able to turn a left onto Thorndike. So the more options we give people, I think the more traffic spreads out. Right now, we've concentrated all the traffic into the Lord Overpass. So I think you're going to see a lot better mobility options for people.
Because just to follow up, one of the issues you have on the overpass now is when you're coming from Chelmsford Street trying to get into Thorndike, you usually have a backup. Usually one of the lights is green and one of the lights, is red, and you can't make that connection. You're usually bottlenecking right around Thorndike Street where Chelmsford intersects with the Lord Overpass. So I think one of the things they said in the subcommittee that made sense, although I guess it's got to be proven first, is that the lights will be more internet connected. There'll be better connectivity. They'll be speaking to each other. So that's, I think, is a good asset. And I think speaking with Nick, pointing out that issue that I see when I come into downtown, if that's going to be alleviated or at least remedied significantly, that's a positive thing. The only other question I'd have is regarding Middlesex Street. Is that an area, do you feel like that'll be bottlenecked? Because I think the way this is constructed, the way you articulated it, ultimately the main sector coming in from the Highlands and from out of town from that section would be Chelmsford Street. Would it be something where Middlesex Street won't have easy access, or it won't be much of an issue at all?
No, Middlesex Street will still have the access to Thorndike and the other side of Middlesex. What we were talking about was making Appleton and Chelmsford the main thoroughfares through the city. They were actually constructed about 50 foot wide, which is wider than Middlesex Street. So back in the day when Chelmsford and Appleton were initially built, they were built to be the main thoroughfares. And what we're doing is we're kind of reverting back to the original way it was before a lot of this, urban renewal projects came in. So we're trying to revert the streets to the original use that they were meant to be.
Okay. Just my last question, and we touched base a little bit on it at the subcommittee regarding pedestrian traffic. How is that improved with this concept?
Yes. Again, through the mayor and city manager, the pedestrian traffic will be improved because we're right now, if you go up on the Lord Overpass, you have all these small little tiny islands that you have to cross and to get to places. Here we kind of did away with that on Middlesex Street, and on Chelmsford Street you actually get a much bigger island to kind of protect you a little bit. And then with the bus lanes in the middle, you're actually going to have a bus stop on the middle there, so you're going to have another refuge island. So you have more refuge when you're crossing the street. Right now, the lower overpass, one of the biggest things about crossing that is it's both a visual and a mental barrier. Crossing over that bridge it's kind of treacherous because you feel you're up on a bridge. There's a lot of traffic under you. You kind of shy away from that railing. You shy away from the traffic, and you kind of feels very narrow. Here, it's going to be more like a typical urban crosswalk. So it's going to be a little bit safer. It's going to feel like you're more connected instead of having this big gash between the two sides of the city.
The last one, I guess a really almost silly question, but how is the bus lane going to interact? Is it going to be, I guess basically that's going to be utilized a lot, or is it going to be empty often? Is it something that's useful space, I guess is my question. I mean, I get the concept, you want people to use the buses, you want to get them out of the way of everybody. How is that going to improve it, I guess, in your mind?
Sure. Like you said, of course, we want people to use the transit service better, but we also want the transit service to operate more efficiently. The Lord Overpass is the front door to the Gallagher station. A lot of times the buses get stuck in the traffic. Here they'd be able to bypass all that traffic so the routes can actually run on time. The emergency vehicles will also be able to use the transit lane, so fire, police, and ambulances will also be able to use the transit lanes to bypass the traffic, improving response times. So they'll, it's not like they're going to be packed with traffic all the time, but when those emergency vehicles and transit services want to use it, it kind of gives them a little bit of an edge, while we're still providing a lot of lanes for traffic at the same time.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. Very thorough. I mean, it's obviously when it's going to be done, it's going to be a challenging environment to navigate when we begin doing it. But I think it's, given the fact that we're going to essentially have right off the bat like 1,200 people coming and going right into the to the judicial center, not to mention all the other development we want, it's going to be imperative that this actually works. So I appreciate the thought. I know you put a lot of different meetings with different interested folks on it, and I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Nick Pozzanetto for a very comprehensive plan here for Concept 4, which, to tell you a little bit about, Concept 4 is an end result of about a handful of community input sessions where the city proposed 3 concepts, and this is the end result of all the stakeholders' input, business owners, residents, commuters in the area, that they are looking to for and see and think would improve this traffic flow and pedestrian nightmarish conditions is what was a big concern to residents, where literally crossing the street from one side to the other was very dangerous in most cases, and there's a lot of truth to that. But this plan, I believe, alleviates all of that. It's what's dubbed as the big fill, we'll call it, where it's going to be filled in, and it accomplishes emergency access during high peak hours of traffic, bicycle and pedestrian access, making things much safer. Through this corridor has had 235 accidents in 2016. That's a significant number. Which that number should go down. We're also expecting Judicial Center, when it opens up in approximately 30 months, about 1,500 visitors per day. And not to mention the other stuff that's in the Hamilton Canal and whatnot, what's going to take place in the area. So it's very important that we get this right, and I think this plan achieves that. So I support it, and I congratulate Nick Pozzanetto and his team for being good listeners and taking the input into consideration of their final plan, which I think is, it may not be perfect. There's still going to be traffic. There's no doubt about it. We're not saying it's going to be eliminated. It's a very busy intersection, throughway for not only Lowell residents, but the suburbs to the north and southern New Hampshire that utilizes to the train station and the highways. So there's still going to be Concept by all stretches of the imagination, but I think it'll be a much safer and smoother flow with the lights being able to communicate with one another with a command center that will be located in the Hamilton Canal Garage to help ease the flow and communicate with each other during high peak hours or other events that may take place in the city of Lowell, which we do not have that luxury at this time. So I support it. I think it's great. This was long awaited and months in planning, but I think we've come up with a good result here and one that I support wholeheartedly. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm willing to support this, Mr. Manager, because for as long as I've sat here, that intersection, that rotary has been designed, retimed, and it seems like we have exhausted almost every option to improve traffic in that area, as well as access to the Lowell connector from the downtown. So I think it's worth trying. I think that we need to do something to reconfigure that intersection and vehicular movement in and out of the city. There's a lot of cars. It's a constant bottleneck, going out of the city. And I think that's an impediment to some degree for economic development, particularly in the Hamilton Canal. And if we want to attract investors, if we want to attract businesses, we have heard from the large developers and the companies and the business owners, sort of on the outskirts, they need access. Their employees want access. And if we don't do something to improve access to the Hamilton Canal, then we're going to continue chasing our tail. And so I sat through the subcommittee, and I have followed this like all of my colleagues, and I'm going to support option 4 for all the reasons that I've stated. Most importantly, it's going to provide better access to that Hamilton Canal District, which is essential if we want to attract big businesses and new developers into that area. So I congratulate you and the traffic engineer. We paid consultants a lot of money to come up with recommendations, and they did. They evaluated the data, and this does make sense. A lot of vehicles coming in and out, and this is going to get them in and get them out. So, Mr. Bassanetto is, I have to tell you, we've had some good traffic engineers, but he has really studied this, and I trust him to move forward on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Rourke.
Thank you, sir. Just one last point. I think that I'll make sure I say it because I thought it was a big part of the concept 4 plan. And if Nick could just come up one more time. When you're on Thorndike Street coming towards Hale, when you have the connection to the Lowell connector, that traffic is backed up all the time because it's only one lane. I think, Nick, under this plan, it's going to be actually 2 lanes, which will alleviate all that traffic that goes from Hale Street, sometimes all the way back to the connector, correct?
Yes, sir. As the chairman pointed out, the filling in the Lord overpass is going to save us money on the design end because it's a lot cheaper to design a fill job than it is two new bridges. So we're going to take that money and we're going to design a 2-lane ramp onto the Lowell connector. What we found in our studies was that 2/3 of all the traffic on Dutton and Thorndike Street are always in the right lane, because if you don't get in the right lane, you're not getting into the Lowell connector. So by putting in a 2-lane ramp onto the Lowell connector, now you can actually use the 2 lanes on Thorndike and Dutton equally, and that by itself creates a lot of capacity in the roadway. So we're and the federal government and the state government would pay for that to build the ramp because it is part of the highway system. So we're very I think that's going to be a great improvement for traffic.
Yeah, Nick, especially in the mornings, I think that's where all the bottleneck starts, is right there.
Right.
So to be able to do something like this is a great part of the plan. So thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Nick, if I just have 2 questions. So if I'm riding a bicycle or I'm walking and I'm on Middlesex Street or Chester Street, either one, but I'm coming out of the Highlands. So as I approach Thorndike Street, then I would press the button for the light, and then do you expect that I'm going to get all the way across, or would I stop halfway, and then how does that work?
Yes, it'd be a stage crossing, just like you described. You'd press the button, the light would come on to cross to the bus area where the bus stops are. Once the traffic, then you'd finish the crossing. So you would cross the street in one cycle, meaning you wouldn't have to wait for a whole cycle to go through and then another cycle. You would make it across in one light cycle, but it'd be 2 phases. So that helps alleviate, it makes it a lot easier for traffic to move and pedestrians to move. And then also you'd be able to cross onto the bus stop, and then if you're getting off the bus, you'd be able to make it to either side.
Okay. And then my final question is, assuming that this vote goes through this evening, then when would the construction commence? What would be the duration? And is there I don't want to know what it is, but is there a plan for traffic during the time of construction?
Yes, sir. So if we get direction from city council tonight, we would, we've already talked to Mass DOT. We're gonna re-sign we have to kind of get their final permission to go ahead, but of course, we need city council approval first. Then we've already scheduled a meeting with Mass DOT. We would then proceed. I've already spoken to the engineers. We're trying to make an April 2018 deadline for finished design and put it out to bid. Then it'd be a 2-year construction period. So right spring of 2020 is when we hope to have all this finished. I mean, substantially, there might be little bits and pieces left over to coincide right with the opening of the Judicial Center and the Hamilton Canal. For traffic control, right now what we're thinking is we would send all the traffic up and down the ramps to divert traffic through the overpass while we fill it in. That way we can fill it in quickly instead of, trying to move traffic around all the time. We would try to, just bite the bullet, get it done quickly instead of dragging it for a long time. That'd be the strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Council Lady.
Just one quick question. Nick, so if you're coming up, as the mayor said, if you're coming up Middlesex Street and you cross over and you get to the red zone there, where the buses are,
Yep.
can you actually walk down
Right.
and then go across onto Ave?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, so you'd be able to, there'd be sidewalks along the bus area, so you could actually walk down and then cross over again.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Smaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonato.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Moving on under petitions, we have a petition from Jeff Hillam of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints requesting permission to address the council regarding a community project.
Okay, let's see. This looked like it was a little shaky earlier. All right, good to go. Thank you for letting me come address you this evening. I appreciate it. Coming on behalf of the local Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but also representing our regional organization and community outreach. A good friend of mine here at the city, Diane LeBlanc, last month introduced me to Mike Damaris, who, we got together and met last week to discuss a community service project. As a regional set of congregations, we do a larger scale community service project every other year to the tune of between 300 and 500 participants. And when I met with Mike, he and Diane both agreed that I should probably escalate that project and involve more people. And their recommendation, which I followed, was to come here tonight. So I don't have much of a plan to present, so my apologies. I just did their recommendation. I come sort of excited to work with the city as we, plan and execute a larger scale community service project planned for the fall. Usually the city partners with us. For example, 2 years ago, we worked with Nashua and tried to address some of the needs that the city had identified based on our scope with manual labor, construction, the ability to, with the ability of that scale, we're quite able to accomplish a lot. And we're excited to partner with the city to accomplish something fun and something big.
Okay, thank you. The chair would suggest a motion to refer this matter to the city manager so that the city manager could meet with Jeff and then report back to the council with a report and recommendation. Does anybody want to make that motion? By Council Mercia, second by Council Rourke. Discussion on the motion. Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you very much for your desire to help out in the city. Any type of work would be great. What did you do in Nashua?
Sure. And so in 2014 or 15, we got together about 350 people, both from our faith community, but also the Nashua interfaith community, and did a 4-mile stretch of their Riverwalk. We both cleaned, repaved trails, cleaned up the non-paved trails, had a group hazmat team that went around picking up needles, and it was about a 4-hour project. What is that, 1,200, 1,300 man-hours?
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I hope, and I can't speak for the manager, but I hope that something good develops from this, because it isn't every day that we can look a gift horse in the mouth and say, thank you so much for wanting to help the city.
Absolutely. We have a lot of enthusiasm, so we'll get something done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Moving on to city council motions. The first motion of the evening is a motion by Council Leary. Request that the city manager explore the feasibility of working with the Middlesex Sheriff's Department in order to have a regional holding facility that would replace our Lowell Police Department holding facility. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Leary.
Just quickly, motion speaks for itself. I just think, obviously, it's a deplorable area or a challenging area to get people in and out of. And speaking to a lot of folks in law enforcement, they said, is there a feasibility looking to work with the sheriff's department? I think there's other sheriff's departments throughout the country that do things similar. It may not be feasible for us to do, but take a quick look to see if this is something that makes sense for us. If you're looking how you get into the holding area, it's pretty challenging for one of our folks who are working for us to get down that tight stairs without getting injured, never mind the folks that they're bringing there. So anything we can do to take a look at that, that'd be possible. I know a lot of different motions have been in regards to the building, and I know it's a challenge. It is what it is. Ultimately, we're going to have to make some bigger decisions, but this might be a temporary solution to an area that is obviously a challenging and potentially, folks can get injured going through that process of entering or exiting. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do like Council Leary's thinking on this. It's definitely a good way to think now to maybe perhaps offset a big cost of a new police station. But unfortunately, one site that was pegged to be a regional lockup, and the manager was hit with this probably over a year ago, was the Judicial Center. The Northern Middlesex Council of Governments proposed that to the manager of that area being a lockup for surrounding communities, and the city didn't find that too advantageous, being a regional lockup, but may have business development there and all what we're trying to accomplish in the area. So, but there are others. There are other solutions, so I support Councilor Leary's motion wholeheartedly, but I just want to communicate on this floor to Councilor Leary that was looked at as a regional lockup, but city didn't find it very favorable. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
No, and I
Council Leary.
appreciate the sentiments. I don't agree with putting it to Judicial Center. I was thinking more along the lines of actually Bill Ricca. It may not be feasible. There is a little bit of distance, but it's not an insurmountable amount of distance if you look at it. And again, it might not work, or there might be other options I haven't thought of. I agree. You don't want to put it in a business district. It doesn't make sense. But there are other options, and there's other communities that do it. So anything we can look at, if it's not feasible, then it's not feasible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is a motion by Council Leary and Council Leahy. Request that the city manager provide an update regarding the closing of the Eastern Bank location in Centerville, its economic impact on the area, and a recommendation to address the impact and improvement of the overall business district. Motion needs no second. Who wants to go first? Council Leary.
Just speaks for itself again. I mean, obviously, they're relocating for business options. It's a very large building and right in the middle of that business district. So I think we need to really come up with a comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that we've got some good businesses over there, the AG Hardware, Cameo Diner, the Top Donut, and that. So anything we can do to help support that area would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is a motion by Council Leahy and Councilor Rourke, requesting that city manager work with the Lowell Fire Department to explore all possible means to replace the turnout gear of the Lowell Fire Department. Council Leahy.
Thank you. The fire department, speaking with the chief and a few of the union reps, the turnout gear is getting to the end of its stage of its life. And I know that they've been applying for a few grants, and hopefully we might hear something come April. But in the meantime, if that doesn't pan out, if we could just take a look at any way that we can help support to replace that, especially with all the studies coming out now that gear needs to be cleaned and properly treated for their safety, and, you know, anything we can do. We have a large fire department, and speaking with many surrounding towns and cities, a lot of this gear does get replaced through grants. It's not an easy task for cities and towns to pick up the tab for this, but it is necessary to support what they do. So anything we can do would be appreciated.
Council Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I know the manager has, upon appointing a grant writer for police and fire, has done a great job in getting necessary grants for the city. I know there's one outstanding that hopefully we'll get word back on very soon. And just, you know, basically the motion, if not, just to look at ways, because sooner or later, Councilor Leahy said that you're going to need to replace this gear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras?
No, I just want to support Councilor Rourke, Councilor Leahy's motion on the turnout gear. This is very important. There are a lot of studies, as Councilor Leahy has stated, that talk about the problems that this gear can cause if they have it over a period of time. But maybe in this discussion also should include the use of the new washing machines that are available to clean this type of equipment up. They need special equipment, and I think that should be tied into this request. It's very important that our firemen, our policemen have the right equipment to use. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Manager, did you want to comment?
I mean, we're sitting down, we are proceeding to get a grant for the turnout gear, but I just want you to know that this city council in the last 2 years has spent $130,000 in operational budget money and capital funds to purchase new turnout gear. So you have tried to address the issue and will continue to address the issue with further funding.
Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The last motion of the evening is a motion by Councilor Samaras and Councilor Rourke. Request that the city manager meet with the administration of UMass Lowell, Middlesex Community College, and the Lowell School Department to discuss their role in the educational planning of the new Lowell High School. Motion needs no second. Who wants to go first? Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. The one thing about this motion is in no way meant to encroach upon the work of the school committee or the school department. But this high school is going to be the biggest project that the city council is going to take on, I think, for many years to come, for any city council. And it is quite important, I think, that the city manager sit down with the university officials, the community college officials, and the city school department officials to talk about ensuring that when this building is built, that office space is included for the university or Middlesex to bring in their recruiters, their support staff, classroom space is made available also. These are the things that are happening all over the country to ensure that our children get the best education possible. Also, we have to ensure that the curriculum or the educational plan that's being developed by the school department is integrated with the Middlesex Community College plan and the university. The way I look at it, when you look at the Rialto building that's going to house theater arts programs, I can see minimally 300 to 450 of the high school students taking courses right there. I think when we followed our past elections, which were in some ways difficult to follow, but there was a lot of discussion about free university education or free college education. What you have at the community college level, at the high school level, is, I see coming down the road, an integration of those two programs to ensure that our students in this country get the best possible education. So I think this is just making sure that we remain ahead of the curve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do know that other cities and towns incorporate space in their buildings, especially those that have new buildings recently built that have space for UMass Lowell and for Middlesex. So I just want to make sure that no matter where the next high school is, that there's space available to bring people from UMass Lowell to Lowell High instead of sending a bunch of students out to their space. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. That concludes the regular agenda. We move on to announcements. Are there any announcements? Hearing no announcements for the evening, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All in favor, all opposed? Stand adjourned. Good job, Eddie. Thanks.